Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Montreal Canadiens' new GM and what to expect for the team going forward. Now before we start, please make sure to join the Hockey Brigade by subscribing if you are new. Now let's get to it. So, first off, who is Kent Hughes? Well, he is currently the 18th GM in Habs history after signing a 5-year deal with the team after spending over 2 decades as a player's agent. In that time, he worked with many notable players such as Vincent Lecavalier, Patrice Bergeron, Chris Letang, and more. So he has a lot of experience working with these players. However, even with all that success and all those players that he had that were working with him, it appears that the Quebec native just couldn't shy away from working for this team that is one of the most traditional and historic hockey franchises in the world. That's a great story right there, right? Yeah, that is. But what's next for him and the team? Personally, I think you have to decide who stays, who goes, and then what direction the team is going to be going. And for the Canadiens, it's kind of a rough patch, and you got to wonder, where are they going to go? Montreal is currently dead last in the standings thanks to a variety of factors. You got Weber's foot injury, Price's absence for a variety of things, and more. And unfortunately for Hughes, he has to deal with all these problems and clean things up. Now, the main question will be short-term and long-term for the Quebec man. My guess is long-term in terms of how he's going to view this team, and that could be an unpopular rebuild, unfortunately, if you are a Montreal fan. And that might be on the way just a season after the original Six franchise made a Stanley Cup Finals appearance. That might make some of you upset, like I said, but let's not kid ourselves. This team is very flawed in certain areas, and they're far from perfect. And Marc Bergevin made some very head-scratching moves in his time with the team as their GM that hindered them, not only in the short term, but probably the long term as well. Pair that with the fact that Hughes might want to make this an offensive-minded team, fast-paced team from what we've heard from him, and you're looking at some older guys probably being moved out, and even guys that just don't fit that, so we'll see how that goes. It might not be. He also said that he understands you have to work with what you have, but going forward, we're going to have to see. And we understand that Montreal is not a team that's going to be able to run and gun with the top teams in the league. They're just not built that way. And if he wants it, then things are going to have to change for what's going to happen. And I would probably say Cole Caulfield, Romanov, and Suzuki are probably safe. But does it believe other guys that are fan favorites to be moved? Probably, especially Carey Price, which seems to be an unthinkable thing whenever we bring it up. But I think when you factor in his age, his pay, and the potential direction of the team, they could get a decent return out of him if a team is desperate enough and needs good goaltending. I'm looking at you, Edmonton. Not saying that the Oilers would be a perfect fit for Carey Price, but we have seen that when his game's on, especially in the playoffs, he can take teams very far. You look at Edmonton, and they're a team that, hey, Montreal made a run, why couldn't they make a run like the Habs did in order to get to the Stanley Cup Finals? That fixes a lot of problems. Even if there are still problems, it just sugarcoats it to say. Now, the potential for a Price trade is something that the fan base would probably throw a fit over because he is a guy that is a legacy guy. One guy that you would say he's going to get his number hung up in the rafters. But if you're going the rebuild mode and you're a GM, you have to be able to make those tough decisions, which we're going to have to see. Is Hughes comfortable doing that? Because it's not about just what makes the fan base happy. It's about becoming a contender, whether that's now or later, and then also building this to where you're not a first-round exit or a team that just occasionally makes the playoffs. We'll have to see how that goes. And speaking of tough decisions, do you fire the current head coach, Dominic Ducharme? That's one thing that I don't really know about because it's an unfortunate situation. This roster has got a lot of issues. It's just got some older guys there, and in general they've had a ton of injuries, COVID issues, and it's just been wild. I don't know what the decision would be, but you have to think that by the end of the year, Hughes, the new GM, will make that decision. Or, hear me out, will he be making decisions at all? I know that sounds weird, but in his first GM job, which is now, he hasn't had to make decisions so far. Will he be given free rein? Probably not. Here's why. The Habs also hired Jeff Gordon as their Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations. Jeff has some GM experience, actually quite a bit. He had a very brief role with the Bruins as an interim GM, and then he also had a much longer stint with the New York Rangers. And I think Gordon would probably take on a lot of that responsibility in year 1 and probably even year 2, and we'll have to see if it's going to be him leading the way and Hughes kind of just focusing on certain things, or is it going to be him having more free rein and being that traditional GM going forward? I think maybe a partnership between the two would be great. You look at Hughes' experience as a player agent, a guy that can really relate to the players. he knows what they want, what they think is fair, but also he knows what he's got to work with financially. It might be a good thing. I don't know if he would be able to do that, but the relations with players is huge. And if he is a guy that is more modern, I think is the way I want to say that, and he understands there are different things, and he sees what he sees as modern coaching and modern guys, maybe he is a right fit to where he could meet in the middle and give guys a little bit of what they want, but not bend too much. And we're going to have to see how that works. Regardless of what happens, we're going to see whether or not they are competing next year or trying to do a rebuild or a retool. That happens too these days. And I personally think the rebuild is the right option going forward. Regardless, so they still have their hands full with this franchise. They need to get them back on the right track. We're also dealing with a fan base that is a very, very passionate fan base, one of the most passionate fan bases in hockey. But on the flip side, they expect results, they expect cups, they expect to be a contender, or at least in the thick of it every year. Might not be the case going forward, we'll have to see. Best of luck to them, and we'll see here from on out. Now, do you think Hughes was the right move for Montreal? And do you think they should try to be competitive, go for a rebuild or retool? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Join the Hockey Brigade by subscribing if you are new for more hockey content. Everybody, stay safe. Have a great night. You go love hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.